sit down to enjoy the nice time and hopefully learn some new things that is going to help competitiveness in the Horizon Europe project. I must always say it's a sacrifice we all make. The NCP network, if you are in there, you will have almost 2 meetings per week. They may look boring some of the time, but they are all important to make sure that we are able to achieve our defined objective. So thank you very much. I will yield to Dr. Equeri so that she can do our introduction thing before we have the first lecture. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Paul. I don't think my video is on. Yeah. So maybe I should continue without the video. But I think my presentation is on.
I think we can hear you.
Okay.
You are launching the meeting again? But we're looking at it before now. Okay.
So I got it back. Okay, good morning, everyone. Sorry for that bridge. My name is Precious Ekwere. I'm the project manager of Cognitive Advisory Services. I'm also a postdoctoral researcher at the University of Western Cape, Cape Town, and the current African chapter chair of Maria Curie Alumni Association. The Maria Curie Maria Curie is one of the program of Horizon Europe, Pillar 1. I participated in the staff exchange program. That's why I'm an alumni. And also last year, I was a local assistant for Africa, UXS Africa. So today I'll be making a little presentation on Cognitive Advisory Services, for which I am currently the project manager. So at Cognitive Advisory, we build partnership to co-create solutions for African development challenges. So my presentation is going to cover who we are, what we do, and how we can partner with you. So who we are an African-focused development consulting company. We have our offices in Lagos. That's what I like. Yes. Mute your system. Can you please mute? 30% of your. They said you are done for 2 weeks. Can you please mute? Provided. Sorry about that. So, we specialize in research and development and innovation strategies and funding. We also assist our clients, such as universities and public administrations and research centers with their research and innovation endeavors. We do this by identifying funding opportunities. We manage project dissemination and help positioning researchers for Horizon Europe projects. So that's basically what we do. And our services include support for Nigerian researchers, basically. We do this by providing them with information, advice, and assistance And we do this through linking them up with NCP network. We have an NCP network that is ready to support researchers in their endeavor. So we also support researchers, Nigerian researchers that are not in Nigeria, they're in diaspora, and we encourage collaboration with them and the ones in Nigeria so that we can achieve our unique goals. We also support our clients by strategically positioning their business in areas that piques their interests. This allows them to actively participate in EU projects along key stakeholders. Other things we get involved in is promoting European research opportunities in Nigeria. So we do this by raising awareness of European research opportunities among African researchers and particularly Nigerian researchers and in research institutes. So we also support African researchers, Nigerian researchers in European projects such as Pillar 1 and 2 of the Horizon Europe African Initiative. So we can partner with you, we share information with you, we see calls, we make sure you know about the calls and help you prepare and position for these calls so that we can fully partake and benefit from these opportunities. We also specialize in European programs that offer financing and support for the development and market entry. So it's not just about research, but the public institute also have a part to play in this. So bring your innovative projects to us and we'll partner with you to see it come to fruition. So also we provide project support activities. In order to optimize the success and impact of a project, we take on the responsibility of managing the communication and dissemination activities. So like for instance, in Horizon Europe projects, the dissemination alone has like a very high point, like 30% of the marks. So we come in, since we are strong and capable in this aspect, we can collaborate with you and make sure you get good points that can get you the grants to further your research endeavors. We also formulate a comprehensive social innovation strategy and implement tools for measuring the project's impact. Our aim is to generate meaningful outcomes and deliver tangible results. So what are the methods we use? We continuously update on funding opportunities for researchers. So if you check our websites, if you check the Horizon Europe website also we manage for Nigeria, and even in your emails, we send you updates of funding opportunities, and our social media handles, you will see updates of funding opportunities available for researchers. We also collaborate with research team as the project communication and dissemination partners. That's part of the services and one of the services we can provide for you. We connect research teams with NCPs. And these NCPs can help with continuous analysis of the relevance of project ideas. So you bring your project ideas, they can midwife it with you. They can also search for partners with you because most of the grants available require partners. You have to form a consortium. So these NCPs can help you do that. We link you with these NCPs. Upscaling of research proposal to meet the EU standards is part of what we will do for you. Providing the research portal for the management of projects until the end of the project. So we have a portal, a tech form portal where you can upload your project, upload your team members, and that portal can help you manage your project from inception to the end of the project. And also assistance with any public administration requirements. So the tools we work with are our website. We have the Cognitive Advisory website. We have the Horizon Europe for Africa website, which we also manage. If you go to those websites, you will always find updates on recent happenings around grants, fundings, and what you need as a researcher. We have our social media handles. We are constantly also updating our social media handles. Please follow us on our Twitter, on our Facebook, and on our LinkedIn so that you will be constantly updated. So we hold information sessions such as this at least once a month to keep you abreast, to keep you informed about upcoming calls, what to do, general Horizon Europe opportunities, grants available. Follow us on our information sessions. If you are not opportune to be there physically, please get the videos from our website too. They're always available. We also host practical workshop where you can come in live, and then we have hands-on training on how to use some EU portals, and yeah. And also we send flash notes and newsletters to our subscribers. So in summary, those are the things we do. We are very African, Nigerian focused, specializing in research developments, innovation strategies. We help our stakeholders with funding, getting the right funding for their project, and then project dissemination and positioning you for your Horizon Europe framework journey. Please contact us. You can put a call across to us. You can check our website. You can follow us on our social media handle, and we'll always be there to support you. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for listening. And I hope you enjoy the rest of this information session and get the most out of it. Thank you. Well,
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Precious. Now we know more about cognitive advisory, and I think it's important to make that clear as we all go together. So the next item is the training by our colleague, Dr. Solomon Agbo. I mean, it's titled Best Practice for Effective Scientific Project Management within Horizon Europe Framework. I think in choosing Professor Dr. Agbo to handle this, I should give you some background. Within the German research network, Dr. Agbo has been instrumental in the area of green hydrogen. He works with Fusion Centrum in Julis. That is the biggest research center in the whole of Europe. It's managed very big projects that cut across country, including the H2 Atlas that cut across the whole of West Africa, Namibia, and the whole of East Africa. Is currently running the East African component. With his team, laid the foundation for the green hydrogen project pursuit by German government in Nigeria. He used to be with us at the University of Nigeria, Nsukka, before he moved over to Fusion Central in Julish. And since he came into Julish, he has facilitated the training with full sponsorship of over 20 Nigerians at the Fusion Center. So it finances these students from PhD and masters from the grant he brought into the center. So we thought it would be important to listen to somebody with this kind of track record. I mean, that is just some of the very many projects that is handling. And you can always Google him, just put his name on. You will likely see him as a front cover of Fusion Center in Julish, which was a major one for a black man to be in the cover of Fusion Central in Julish, not because of color, but by accomplishment. So I'm sure you are going to have some very nice time listening to him. So let me bring up Dr. Solomon Agbo. Agbo, like I was told, it's not Agbo, you know. Almost every tribe has this name. So Dr. Solomon Agbo for him to take us through the best practice, and he will be showing us some case study of successful project managed by him. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Professor Jai. Thank you for the kind introduction. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and dear colleagues. So it's always a pleasure for me to have the opportunity to engage with my people. I say this because if there is anything that we would have to do to change Nigeria, to improve Nigeria, it will have to take us, putting heads together. And this is one thing that has driven my relationship with Professor Jai since we got to meet a couple of years ago. And all of the things that by God's grace we are able to do and are doing since then is targeted towards raising up, trying to connect with colleagues who share the same passion, that we can leverage knowledge and make contribution in our own time. So I'm really, really very glad to have the opportunity that we can exchange here. So I have a few slides that I'm going to show just to somehow drive the discussion. But beyond just the slides, I really would appreciate that we can have a discussion in terms of what really do we need to do to be able to assess opportunities that exist within Europe, but even also beyond. Okay, so having said that by way of introduction, then I will go to the slides I have here. I trust you can see my screen.
We can see.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So I have been asked to talk about best practices for effective scientific project management within Horizon Europe framework. So I will try to touch on this in general, but also try to narrow a bit to what happens within Horizon Europe. Some of the things I'm going to say, I talked about, I think sometime in the past. So for some of you that were here in the past, maybe you would hear me say some things already a second time, but I think that would be important. So we put emphasis on what we really need to do, so that we can start to leverage these opportunities. Sorry, just one moment. I think I need to take this out. Okay. Yes, nice out. Okay, so everything starts this way. So if you want to get involved in the Horizon project, the Horizon course, it starts with a proposal. And then if the proposal gets through, then you get to the next phase where you now have to run the project. And in doing that, then you have to look at everything involved in the project management. And in doing that also, you have to be getting in touch with the EU in terms of the periodic accounting, and then of course, the report. So this is more like how it is. And in our discussion, we are going to look at these different aspects. Now, the first part is as important as managing the project itself, if actually not even more important, because the reason is you really need to get the project, and then you can then have something to manage. So I will pay some attention in project proposal, because this is also where we have a lot of challenges, including also here in the research center. So it's not like every proposal that one has written gets through. from my personal experience, the first 6 proposals I wrote did not get through, whether within European level, but also within the German research space. The first 6 went to the dustbin. But it was also a process of learning. So we will take some time to talk about that aspect, and then we will now also look at how to manage an account, and then of course, reports. Okay, so with regards to the proposal, I would try to really use examples in terms of what I really think that is relevant for us. So it's a long part. It's a long part. Most times, what people do is people wait until a call is out, and then they start to think about what they need to put together for a proposal. Now, honestly, this is not the best approach from my experience, but also from a number of people that I know. It's almost usually difficult to get through if you just get to wait, and then after 1 month you see a call, and then you start to think about, okay, I need to find the people, and it's usually a bit chaotic. So the best thing to do is, if you conceive an idea, if you have a concept that you want to develop, you want to look for funding to implement, the first thing you would need to do is to see what you have that would enable you to realize that concept, and then see what other expertise you would require to be able to realize that concept. And then if possible, try to put it down clearly. Okay, I want to develop technology. Okay, I will show an example later. I want to develop a technology that takes something from point A to point B without having to go by road. That is an idea. So you are just thinking about it now, and then you think, okay, I have the capacity to develop the mechanical components of this system, but I cannot deal with the electronics. I cannot deal with the programming components. Maybe I'm not able to deal with the test running, maybe, and all of those things. So once you are clear about the concepts, then you try to think about what you can do as a person, then try to think about what other people can do for you within the concept. And then you start to put the consortium together. Already, even before there is anything like a call. And then your next step is to now, within the concept, then clearly define what will be the objectives, what will be the method, and then through the parts that you see on the screen. So you can also do this once the call is out. You can narrow your concept around what the call is about. I mean, again, I think I'll give a typical example. There's, broadly speaking, you would always have a lot in the field of energy or climate change or sustainability and things like that. But you can already, even without waiting for the call to come out, is there anything you would like to do in the field of energy? Do you want to, I don't know, you want to go into system analysis? You want to go into energy management? These are different things. You can already, get an idea and start working around it while you look for the right opportunity to make that happen. Okay, so that's the part. And in the end, this from the beginning, then you work up to the project budget. So the project budget is very critical. I'll talk a little bit about it again, because this is also where a lot of people miss it. It is very critical for the EU calls. So the project must connect well to the work plan. Extremely very important. So if they cannot justify the budget with the work description that is presented in the proposal, it is just dead on arrival. Okay, so you would have to make a very clear objective clarification. This is also very critical. And I put here in green by the side that this must align with the core requirement. So you have your general objective of what you want to do, but you have to tailor it somehow. You have to tailor it definitely so that it aligns with, if there are specific requirements in the call that you would have to follow. So for example, the call says you have to do a demonstration, or maybe the call says, okay, demonstration is not required, but you have to build up a model, or you have to develop an app, or things like that. So you have to narrow down your objectives really to get to the core requirement. And in doing this, it has to be very specific. So you have to, sometimes also people make this mistake. You keep a very general objective. I want to generate energy to move Nigeria from access rate of 30% to energy access of 100%. That's fine, but that's too generic. So there has to be a way to break down the objectives. Then it has to be measurable. So it has to be very clear that whatever you want to get at the end can be quantified, can be measured. And of course, it has to be within a timeline. Sorry, timeline, not time links. So it has to be within a timeline that is realizable. So if it's a 4-year or 5-year call, then whatever you want to do has to make sense that within that timeline, you are able to realize it. Okay, another very important thing to keep in mind that also must connect is you have in the middle your consortium. So this forms the bulk of the human or the knowledge base that you would require for the project. And this is also extremely very critical for the EU. So most times you would see in calls, they say, okay, you must have partner, if it is EU-African partnerships, where we most times come in, you have to have European, but also African partners. They say at least one here or one there. But most times it's almost impossible. It's very, very difficult to get an EU call that is funded where you have one or just 2 partners here and 2 partners there. It may look like, okay, you don't have to gather the whole world, but it has to be, it's one thing that they pay very serious attention to. So there has to be a spread. And I'll give us a hint. This is very important. I'll give us a very important hint. When you form a consortium, or when you're trying to look, if you're looking for people that you're going to network with, sometimes EU gives preferences to emerging European countries. So if you do a proposal, I'm not trying to say that you will never have a proposal funded if you have only like the European giants. So you have forming a consortium, you have Germany, you have France, you have maybe Netherlands. And that's okay, but sometimes they give preference, or they try to support the emerging also European countries. So you think about partners in Poland, think about partners in Croatia, some of these other countries that are, trying to also build up, Czech Republic and some of these, Slovakia, they tend to increase your chances. So this is some of the things we have also seen over the years. So very important, you think about your consortium and how that connects to what you want to do, and make sure that then you allocate the tasks to partners in the consortium that have the requisite expertise to do what they should do. So because they check these things, of course, when you start filling the form, so if you look at the part A of the form, you have to give details of each partner. You have to also give details of projects or publications, at least 5 that the partner has done before. So that has to connect. So you don't assign a responsibility to a member of a consortium where it's difficult to justify. So EU will look at this. So very important. And then within the consortium, once you have the consortium, then you have to think about all the other things around the consortium that you would need, the personnel, you think about the infrastructure, you think about the budget, and sometimes also it is necessary that you can also subcontract. Not often required, but sometimes you may have the need also to subcontracts. Okay. I would come a bit more into the budgeting. This is very important because so many times you have, of course, there is always a funding limit, and the effort is always to try to narrow what you want to do to fit the budget. Now, the difficult thing here is if you try to just squeeze it in a way that it is difficult to justify, then it's you just shoot yourself in the leg. So or you say, okay, I mean, this is open, this is 5 million euros, and then you have to budget until you get to 4,900,000 and until almost to the last cent. That also you can do, but it has to be justified. So there has to be the requisites or the commensurate work plan that aligns with the budget. There has to be the consortium, the strength of the consortium that aligns with the budget. There has to be the proposal quality. So what do you intend to do? So for example, you want to do a modeling. Your plan is to generate models, maybe that define, I don't know, African cities in 50 years time. Yeah, this is okay. So, but you would have to tailor the budget to what you would need for that kind of work. If you need clusters for the proposal for the work, then that would be a relevant infrastructure for such a work. But so it is extremely important that if you have a budget of 5 million, you don't have to get to 5 million if your proposal quality and content does not bring you to that point. So they don't stretch it to that point, otherwise then it just dies on arrival. Okay, then you have to look at the roles and then the values that you have in the partnership. I will talk about this shortly. The funding has to be a bit balanced. So there has to be somewhat a balance in the funding, but also in the partnership. Of course, most times the budget comes from Europe, but also sometimes also you have a European African partnership. I say this, I hope I don't get queried for saying this. Sometimes you have a mismatch in the budgets. I mean, you have European partners wanting to take sometimes 90% of the budget. Sometimes some would want to take a little bit less, but if it has to align with what the roles each partner has to play. And I must also say this, sometimes we need to also insist. I would not tell you all of that. Sometimes the struggle that we go through to make sure that budgets are allocated to African partners appropriately, but just to let you be aware that sometimes it's also a bit political, that we need to also sometimes insist that we get what is relevant for the work that we do, even if it is not funded from Africa, but it is in the call and we should be able to assert. So if it is necessary, please sometimes assert that that the budget allocation is properly assigned. And this is also important because most times we are not the coordinators. So if most times the European partners are the coordinators, especially because the calls are so defined, and as coordinators, in the end, we'll do the submission and all of that. But that notwithstanding, we can assert. In fact, there was a submission we did, I think that was 2 or 3 weeks ago, and it was a big issue. Myself here and another colleague, and it was like I said, no, you cannot do this. You cannot assign this. This does not work. So it was like back and forth. So keep that in mind, so that you if you need to insist, then sometimes it's good to do. Okay, I have so I talked about the budget. I mentioned this the last time, but I think it's important that I reiterate that again, because one of the fronts from where so many people just miss it is the mismatch in the budget. Once it just does not connect it's a huge ground to end to just just finish it. So it's very critical, and that's why I will dwell on this a little bit. So you can't budget top down. So in that case, if you are the project coordinator, then you have to allocate the funding to the members of the consortium based on the work that you have also allocated to them. Sometimes it has to also be bottom up, which is what we try to do most of the times. So we ask partners who are going to do different tasks, because you are not doing, so even if you are the coordinator, you are not doing all the work. So we're doing something in PV. Okay, this is my expertise on something with hydrogen, but then I need a partner to do socioeconomic analysis, or that's going to, or maybe a company that we do the project that we do like an actual development on site. So I cannot make a budget proposition for him. So it's always better to ask to build up the budget bottom up. But then, of course, as a coordinator, you have an overview of how much the cost is. Then you try to also keep a balance. I will talk about this also shortly. That it's very important that the allocation aligns with the task, not necessarily with the not necessarily with the partner. That's also sometimes mistakes that people make. Okay, it is Forschungszentrum Jülich. It's a very big institution, so they must have the biggest budget. That's not necessarily the case. So we have to do, currently there is a project we have in the University of Nigeria, Soka, where we're trying to build up a lab. So we applied for an extension. For the next 2 years, that is granted, but the funder insisted, because we are building up a lab, the funder insisted, as in the proposal, insisted the 90% of that extension will be dedicated for the content of the lab. And then we are here in the research center, we are the coordinator. But then with 90% of the funding we got for the extension, we'll go for the infrastructure that will go to the lab. So that can happen. So if you have to, like I said, funding has to be allocated in a way that is justifiable. So you are the coordinator, but then you are equipping a lab, so you cannot take 50% of the funding. Then you don't have funding again for the lab you want to equip. It does not make sense. So that balance is very important. And then I talked about this also the last time. You have to think about the budget components. So you have to keep personnel, you have to keep travel, equipment, and then I said the subcontract, of course, always fantastic to summarize this in a table. I think I'll show an example later. Then you try to, of course, tie the budget to work packages. And then, just I wrote here, please try to keep it real. You have a 1 year, or let's say 2 year projects. And then let's say you have 200,000 euros, and then you budget 100,000 for travel. That does not connect at all. So there has to be a way to make sure that these things connect. And then overhead is also always very important. I would not here for EU, you have to have at least 25% of the direct costs, excluding subcontracts, as overhead. So this is a rule. But sometimes, again, I say this, please don't quote me, but I say this in all honesty. Sometimes institutions in Europe charge overheads that are mind-blowing. Really, really mind-blowing. Just that we are informed sometimes up to 100%. That's true. Okay, so please, you have to take care that the budget components are somewhat realistic, but also contained within what the EU will fund. So I have here some things that you don't have to do. So there is no partner that should have more than 30% of the total budget. So this information is important for you, even if you are not the coordinator, but you should take care. So you should also, of course, you get an overview of everything that the coordinator does, but of course the coordinator himself knows also that these rules apply. So just make sure that that some of these rules of thumb are obeyed, because like I said before, just a very first check and it does not align, then it helps them to reduce the number of reviews that they will have to do. Just like, so this initial first review will be done. And just all of those ones that just for, even before looking at the scientific content, once the very basic administrative or budgeting issue, because these are the ones that the scientific content is the next step. So some of these ones should just be the first evaluation. So once it fails here, then it is vorbei, like they say in German, then it's over. But so that's why all of these things are extremely important. I will talk a little bit again about the scientific content. Of course, we come from different fields, but somehow you have to build up the scientific content also in a way that I will talk about that later. Okay, so no country should have more than 40% of the total budgets. There is also a limit to what the project coordination and management should have. So as a coordinator, I'm allowed to have like 5.5% of the budget, and personnel must align with allocated budgets and tasks. So you don't have to ask for 5 people if realistically or reasonably speaking, you can do that with 2 people. Otherwise, they will look at the budget as just trying to stretch to the limit. And that's a mistake so many people make. You must not try to just draw the budget. You can apply for 5 million. So you must not just draw your plan to get to that 5 million, because you have to have it. If it cannot be justified, the proposal dies on arrival. So if you can work with 3 million justifiable, please apply. Then you would have more chances than stretching budget just to get to the highest. That will also be difficult if you cannot justify it. Okay, some rules in terms of what you should do and should not do. They must be incurred within the project period. This is extremely important in Germany here, but also within EU. If you try to do anything outside the funding period, then it cannot be accepted. That funding must be refunded. That's the funds must be refunded. So you have to take care. Sometimes we have this problem. I mean, I also speak from experience here. Sometimes you have like 6 months ending in the project and you still have 1 million to expend. It drives you crazy. You really run like, because it's a big danger for the institution. So if we have that incidence here, you almost get into a very big trouble, because what that means is when you apply the next time, then they slash your budget. So even within German funding institutions, German funding in general, it's something that we keep an eye on, especially if you are the coordinator. Make sure that you expend the funds that you have in the project. And of course, you have to keep the funding within the budget. So if there is any reason for which you have to do an item outside what it is allocated, then it has to be extremely justified in writing. Why should you take a part of the travel budget to do? But usually this is not allowed. Yeah, in some extreme cases, yes, you can make an argument, but you have to be permitted to be able to do that. Very important. Okay, you have to follow local accounting norms and that of beneficiary institutions. So somehow keep it again within what is reasonable. It's also possible to, which is also what we do, when we prepare project proposals. We have partners in Africa. We do everything within what is contained as EU regulations. So we allocate budgets in euro, assign tasks also in euro, but somehow just keep it in a way that, again, it's justified. Just a bit of a table. So you have to put the work plans, the number of persons, or what we call total person per month, and then at the end you calculate, how many total person months that is required, and then from that you can, get to your total. I don't know if I have run out of my time. Precious. We can also do the parts when we do the practical discussion. Do the next parts.
Prof, you can continue.
Okay. All right. So the main part of the project management comes into, there are so many things that are involved here. But I would like to say that there are two things that you have to pay attention to. One is, if you are the coordinator, of course, it lies on you to keep an overview on all of the people that are involved in the project. But if you are not the coordinator, then as a part of the consortium, it's the onus then is on you to supply the coordinator with information. So keep a constant, keep everything that would be required as proof of tasks, as proof of funding expended, as proof of milestones realized, as proof of deliverable. You must keep record of. Extremely very important. That's basically everything about project management. Making sure that tasks are accounted for and recorded. What's it's done, how is it done, prove that it is done, it aligns with the objective, it aligns with the timeline, and then it is properly documented. Then you are good to go. Of course, there are periodic reporting, there are periodic project meetings that every member of the consortium is required to be part of. So within Horizon Europe, of course, the reporting is done by one person, so the project coordinator, but then he gets input from all of the people. There is a management system within the EU that this is done. So reports are submitted, payment requests. Of course, they don't give you all the money, but then you have to make payment requests, and then you have to show proof of deliverables, and then all the other documents, and then your funds are made available. So this is extremely very important. So, like I said, the periodic reporting is done by the coordinator based on how it is defined also in the grant agreement. So because once the funding is obtained, then you have to do the grant agreement. So this is done within the management system of Horizon Europe, and then the consortium partners together, but this is submitted by the coordinator, and then you get all the actions, prompted by email, and that's it. So you have to do periodic progress report, and then the claiming of your. Okay, so publication, of course, this has to be open, and then if there are papers, you will always request that this is open access, so that every person can have access to it. And of course, if you have a possibility to have a data management plan, sometimes there are also softwares that help you to manage data, but also the general project management. There are a couple of them that somehow that are also open source. Maybe that would also be important to use. Sometimes consortium also try to do like a common Cyber account or Teams account. So you have like an online cloud where everybody can make inputs. That's also very common these days. And then so that you're able to make inputs, and then it's easier for the coordinator to have all of that and keep the communication with the EU portal as it is. Okay, I think I have to, maybe I'll just leave it here and let me not go further. And then we would finish up when we in the next part. Okay, thank you very much. And then back to you, Precious.
Thank you very much, Dr. Solomon. Thank you for that very insightful presentation. Um, we are grateful. So, I think the next part is a case study.
Okay. Yeah, so let me stop sharing this. I will use a case. So what I will do is just go a little bit into the scientific contents, so that just to see how we create the story around the proposal, because this is where everything starts. So you have to be able to tell a story that can scientifically convince the reviewers that this makes sense to be funded. So that's assuming that all other things are granted. I have for in keeping to data, data security and all of that. I tried to adjust some of the things so that I don't go to jail for breaching rules. So I hope you don't mind. So I will just I will show, of course, real scientific details, but yeah, I will. Yeah, I could also show some institutions, but I will take off some details about numbers and all of that. But I thought this would still be very, very useful to us nonetheless. Okay. Let me know if you see my screen. I think I need to put it in the full screen mode.
Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay.
Now.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. So I will, so I just called it X proposal, and so it's basically accelerating green transition and energy access partnership with Africa. So that was the framework under which this proposal was done. So this is the concept. Like I said, I will try to somehow just to show how we built up a story. So we are looking at Africa in general and the role that PV can play in providing energy access to urban and rural communities. And then what we want to do basically is, so there is a concept that I developed by God's grace here in the research center during my postdoc time as a Humboldt fellow. We tried to build a system where you are able to integrate PV and battery in one system. So you make a solar cell, and then on the same cell you integrate a battery. So you have them as a single device developed in one system. So you can also check it online. So I developed the proof of concept, which was great. And then since then we've been building on it. I think currently 2 or 3 of our students from Nigeria are also working on this. So what we try to do in this particular concept is we were thinking about regions where you have high temperature. So you have to make high temperature batteries. Usually batteries are not made to operate under very high temperature. So here we're looking at between 30 and 80 degrees centigrade. And the reason why this is important is because if you integrate battery with PV, usually if you have PV in Africa, for example, the backside of the PV, or what we call the module temperature, can go even as high as 80 degrees centigrade. So if you put a module in, I don't know, in Zamfara, in Sokoto, where you have like 40 degrees ambient temperature, the module temperature can get up to 80 degrees. So what we're trying to do is this concept realizable in Nigeria, for example, in tropical climates, with the usual, so the typical batteries, this would be difficult because of the high temperature. So our focus then is we try to develop a high temperature battery that we can integrate with, in this technology to be able to make these tests in Nigeria. So this was the concept. Right. So the first thing is then the early development, which we're going to do here. in the research center. So try to look at, so basically lab scale. And then the next step will be the field deployment. So we have to bring this to Africa to test. And then the next would be then the bigger demonstration, right, in different locations in Africa. So this is the concept. And yeah, it's interesting. It makes a lot of sense. It brings a lot of value in terms of sustainability, in terms of also bringing out the costs if you're able to integrate PV and battery in one system together. Okay, so for us, so the innovation, so the innovation is that integration component. So that's where the innovation lies. If you're able to integrate them as a single system, as a single module that does not exist before, then that would be the selling point. Like I said, then you have the different phases, the early development, the advanced development, and then we do the demonstration in a bigger system. Excuse me, and then thereafter we have so the baseline, so typical things, then the data acquisition, then the optimization that we would have to do. So this will run for 5 years. So we have all the different components. So in terms of education, capacity building, in terms of everything that would be relevant for the EU. So what we try to do is, so we look at so like I said, the innovation part. So we have to show relevance in terms of research, why this is important. Then you have to look at the baselines that will bring you to the objective, and then of course the socioeconomic and sustainability aspects, where we have to look at education, teaching, bringing the local people to the know-how, then looking at the socioeconomic impact, and then of course all of the other things, and then you see the different partners that have the different tools to do the different things. Okay, so that's the consortium. We have several European partners, academic industry, because for this kind of call, there's a limit to what we can do from research or just academics. Then you would need industrial partners who are going to be on ground. Then, especially once we leave the early demonstration, we have to go to the field demonstration and then the building of the system. Then you need these bigger European partners who would have the expertise to build up that. And yeah, some of the specific challenges that you would have to, take into account, and just a bit about the scope. So what solution that we are addressing, the target communities, of course, the bigger objective, but then of course the consortium. And you see here, we have to talk about the balanced consortium of European and African partners is an asset for the evaluation. So this is extremely very important. And we had to put down the expectation. So what's the expectation in terms of short term, expectation in terms of medium term, but also expectation in terms of long term. And these things have to be defined. And extremely very important, we try to keep a balance here between EU and Africa. So it has to be relevant for both, because this is a joint call in as far as the details of the call is concerned. So we have to bring out these elements here. So you're not just creating value. And this is sometimes also a mistake that a consortium make. You have to keep it really balanced. So you're not talking about just Africa. You're also not just talking about just Europe, but you have to look at the bigger market opportunities for both European and African markets. And yeah, that's it basically. So I think that, like I said, I would not go into so much details about the funds and all of that, because yeah, I mean, this is a very small world, and before I get a very big query, because I'm not allowed to do that. Okay, but if you have any questions, I think we can then take it on from here. Thank you, and back to you, moderator.
Thank you so much, Dr. Solomon. Thank you, participants, for your time, and I hope you have been gaining a lot from this info session. Thank you so much for sharing your wealth of knowledge with us, Professor Solomon. At this time, we have discussion. So please, this is the time to ask your practical questions The floor is open. Please, let's draw from Dr. Solomon. Draw everything we need to draw from him. Ask him everything you need to ask him. And then we have this practical discussion session. So you can signify with the raise of the hand, and I will call you up. Dr. Awal, are you trying to? Please, do we have any hands raised? Okay. Maru Sani.
Thank you very much, Precious. Thank you very much, Dr. Solomon, for this presentation. I would like to know, you were talking about consortiums. Please, how did you come about the consortium that actually work on this case study? For instance, now, was it about, okay, these are the things we'll be able to do on our part, and these are the other things we won't be able to do. So in that case, let's go get this particular organization and see whether they can help us out. Or was it about, this has to be balanced? I need to have some people in Africa, some people will also have to be in Europe. Then what are the other stakeholders that will be involved?
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much. So I think it's important that it is, like I said, it is very important that it is balanced. So of course, you must have a consortium that is balanced. I think you saw it also in the slide I just showed. But it has to be justified. So you don't just bring partners that you cannot assign role. Every partner that is in the consortium will have to have a role, and will have to have a role that aligns with what the partner's expertise is. So that's extremely important. Let me also say, so many times, I mean, people just would want to get a consortium, but I would say that most times this also comes from your network. I know that is sometimes difficult, but it is a lot easier if you have built up some relationships. So there are a couple of things I do with Professor Jai now, which we just based on the fact that, okay, I know Prof, and then I know that he has expertise in this, and we can talk over it, and then we get these things done. So what I'm trying to say is, it becomes a bit more difficult. I know that within the EU platform, you can look for partners. So there are European partners you can find there. There are also African partners you can find within the platform. But it's a lot easier if you somehow connect to people you already know somehow. That, I mean, you have somehow started to build a relationship with. That makes it a lot easier, maybe within your field or related field. So if you have opportunity in whatever platform, attend conferences, attend seminars, and then interact with people outside your own domain, then you really then have the possibility to continue to build up your network, because you would have to draw from this network when you would need to build up such a consortium. So that would be my response.
Thank you, Doc. Thank you.
So I see Dr. Yemisi.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Solomon. That was a very inspiring presentation, so I learned a lot from it. I'm going to base my question on industrial partnership. Yeah, is it advisable to get partners, industrial partners from Europe or in Africa? For example, if I have a project that I want to present and I already identify industrial partner in Nigeria, and I don't have industrial partners in Europe. Number one, though I might request for my partners to help me identify industrial partners in Europe, but what is your advice? Is it advisable to get from Europe and from Nigeria? And from Africa, or from the two continents? And again, in the developing the proposal, is it advisable to also list the name and the link of the company in the proposal? Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. Starting from the last one, yes, that's very important. So everything that's because these things will be checked. So you can always list details about the company because it will be verified. I mean, there is no doubt. It will be verified. In fact, if for a company to be part of such EU call, you have to have what they call PCI ID. So you have to be registered within the platform. And to register in the platform, you have to put in these details. So that's not in doubt. The company must be registered. But in terms of using African and or European industry partners, it depends on what you want to do. I'll give you an example. If you want to build up a PV system and you want to just do basic installation, I mean, why would you have to get a company from Europe to come and do PV installation in Africa? You have local companies that can do that installation. But if I want to, I'll give you an example. I have, so one of the systems that in one of the projects with UNN, we are going to have in the lab what we call a flasher system. So this is a system that is used to characterize solar modules. So within a second, they just flash light on the system and then they can generate the IV characteristics. This does not exist anywhere in Africa, right? So there is no way we are able to get a partner in Africa to install the system. So what we have done, actually just last week, is to contract a company here in Germany. So they will bring it to the university, they will install it, and then they will train the local people that are going to be using the system. So this is just basically something you have to take care. So if you have to do a task that you have local expertise to be able to do, it will be unreasonable to assign it to an European partner. You understand? So, but if it is something that you would not have a local expertise to do, then you have to assign it to an European partner. So that's also some of the things that they would have to check. Because what if you assign to a company that doesn't have the expertise to do the task, then you would also run into trouble. Then it wouldn't fit. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you very much. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, man. So I see Professor Dugo.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Solomon. What a wonderful presentation. Thank you so much for this opportunity to also follow you up. I have some few questions. We have submitted a proposal on Vector Africa and the first phase, and we are expecting, hopefully, to move to the second phase. At this stage, what do we do as a consortium?
You actually don't do anything. So if it's a two-step yes, if it's a two-step proposal,
yes,
you just have to wait. You just have to wait.
Okay.
So you have to go until if you get a feedback regarding the first, and then they would ask you to now submit the full proposal for the second stage. So you just wait and be praying.
I'll be praying. Okay, that's great. But you are saying we cannot be doing some we cannot be talking amongst the consortium? Is it not possible for us to start preparing something?
You can be, but let me tell you frankly,
yes,
sometimes that talking time is paid for.
Okay.
And so there are partners that will not want to continue to talk because they will think that you don't have to start the activity before the project starts. Because that time is not paid for.
Yeah.
Right? So that time is not paid for. So for some people, you like, I mean, why are we expending man hours when we don't have I mean, in this part of the world, that's a very big consideration that people give. So every time expended is People
is
pay attention.
accounted for.
Yes,
Yeah.
people pay attention to. But if you
Oh,
have done the submission for the first stage, you just wait.
yeah.
Then
Okay.
they will get. If you get through, then they will call you for this. It's almost like 90% certain. Then once you get through the first phase, it's like almost 90% granted that you would get through the second.
Okay. You mentioned something about getting close to the estimated budget, and if you what happens if you have something more than the expected budget?
Oh,
In
you have
case
you have to cut it.
that's okay. All right. Okay.
Except you have um you have own funding to account for that.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, but certainly you cannot go beyond. I mean, if it is explicitly written in the call that you are
Yeah.
allowed to exceed, but with a justification, then you can do. But if the limit is set without such provision, please just keep to the limit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Another thing, while we were taking through a training before the proposal writing, the challenge the African scientists face is the experience with EU and Horizon Europe proposals or projects. And luckily, some of us have been able to do a lot of work with EU countries, and we're hoping that at least it will help the African countries to coordinate, because the issue is coordination.
Yeah.
Sometimes they prefer the
European
coordination
partner.
over
Mhm.
there
Yeah.
more than here. But someone asked a question: now, when do we grow? Because some of us have worked with the European partners for quite some years, and they know our track records. And of course, they said, well, there's nothing wrong for Nigerian institutions to coordinate, and that's why this project is coming. We're hoping the Nigerian institution like University of Jos should be able to coordinate this vector. The project is Vector Africa Network with a very good consortium in Cameroon and Tanzania and Mozambique. And we have our partners in Europe, some in Romania, some in Spain and Italy. That's what we're hoping to have, a very strong consortium. So the challenge is they will prefer us to
To be
to allow them to
members
coordinate.
and not. Yes, I think it's somehow an unwritten rule, if I say
Yeah,
that. It's an unwritten rule. And I think somehow the reason is also obvious. I mean, if the expertise, if the funding is driven from this part, then they would prefer the European partners also drive it. But there is no rule, except if it is also, there are calls where it is also very explicit that it has to be, it definitely has to be a European partner, or if it's maybe a German call, of course, it has to be
yeah, yeah. They're in
explicitly.
Germany. Yeah, yeah.
But like I said, it's an unwritten rule, and most times both the budget and the activities are much more tilted or on the European side. But I also agree with you. It's at some point we need to take also the driver's seat.
Yeah. With cognitive adversary, I think they're doing a very great job, and we're learning a lot. And I want them to keep up the good work and bringing you on board. I think this is very excellent for us, and thank you very much for this opportunity. We will continue with the training. We will keep learning and
Yes.
keeping our fingers crossed. Thank you very much. Welcome.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
sir. Thank you,
Yeah,
sir.
thank you. Yeah.
Mayaga
So
Prof.
just,
Ah,
so just a comment to that our colleague that was talking about what getting partners. That is one of the things the NCP network is also established for. Uh, the it is always the best if you have contact that you have worked with within your network, but If not, please look at the NCP who is in charge of the area or the call you are looking at, and you can write to him. I need partners in this. If you are specific, maybe you need partners in countries. Like at the NCP network level, we relate to our NCP network of the other countries. This morning I've received from Spain, I've received from Finland, communication by the NCP network that is at my equivalent to what I'm working on here. So if there is anything, just look for who is the NCP network person. If you are not clear, so look at the sectoral leader or the Professor Fabro, who is the overall. Just write a letter. We can forward it to the NCP network of that other nation to help you look for who is most relevant in that direction. And Professor Dogo, you know, there is no free talk in Europe. But what you can, if you want to be seeing the face of your network, of your consortium, is to begin to bring up other ideas that can bring all of you together again. To begin to, so if you know there is a fall coming, or you know where you can plan, but there is no free call in Europe. Everybody wants to be paid for the time they spend. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, everybody, for the contribution and this discussion session. I think we are really on time. Thank you, Professor Solomon, for really managing your time very well, and then the impactful session. I don't know if any other person has something to say, something to bring to the table, because that's why we bring these experts here, so that we can have practical conversations. You have practical questions, what is bothering you at the moment, and we can tackle them together. But if in the absence of any other question or
Hello.
okay.
I am Dr. Nurokoro. Please, I would like to ask Dr. Solomon, who presented very, very interesting, and I was wondering if it is possible, because like myself from a science background, truth be told, not much familiar with this project management. So I was wondering if it is possible, maybe perhaps you organized another session for us with presentation, and we will have a kind of a mini e-practical experience. I don't know whether I'm making sense, such that we will be carried along and we will appreciate and understand it more. Because one thing I don't know, maybe I'm a bit myopic in this sector, but in this aspect, but the truth is that science, we on most occasions are lacking with things of project management, like, and what have you. And I think there is no way you will have a successful research without a very good project management. So is that possible? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yes, I think that yeah, you made a very important point, because sometimes it's really not easy. It's sometimes you really need to there are so many things and so many things within this science space, but there are also so many things that would also have to do even with your person, because you really can have partners that are very annoying. You ask for a report and then you don't get it, but you're even colleagues. So within the H2 Atlas, for example, we have worked with 31 countries across Africa, and sometimes now we are preparing for the final report next week, Thursday. Then I have asked some partners, I need statements, I need photos, I need some of the things. Until now that I speak to you, we don't, for some partners, we don't have, from 31 countries. For some, you still don't have any information. But I mean, so it can be challenging. I want to make a suggestion. Maybe Professor Jai can tell us if this is feasible, but maybe something we can work around. We can have a workshop, a live workshop, maybe on-site workshop, maybe for 3 days. And we do it like this. We will create the process. We will make a call. So in the first day of the workshop, we have a short training, and then we open up a call, and then we form consortium within the people participating. Then each consortium will go and develop a concept, and then we walk it through. So within the 3 days, so we assess we do an assessment of the proposals from each consortium. We accept, and then they will start work, and then we will start to evaluate. So we can do this, but I think the big question is how we find funding to be able to, but it would be nice to do, I agree with you, maybe within 3-4 days, like a really hands-on, and then we run through from project proposal up till accounting and all of those things. Professor Jai.
Thank you very much. I mean, number one, the colleague should please avail the cognitive advisory headquarters, his email, so that some more information, particularly regarding the Horizon Europe project, can be forwarded to him. Or though there are so much information on the internet, but one may get stranded looking for all of these things together. But we can send some more specific information. Secondly, this is going to be a regular session of interaction. I mean, the one organized by Cognitive Advisory. Thirdly, there is also a training framework that is supported by the EU, and we will likely have the first section in June. That is going to be a physical session, just like you have described, where we are going to go through the whole procedure from concept to evaluation eventually. So we are going to have some colleagues come from Europe. The Spanish NCP will also be coming. The Spanish embassy is giving us some physical people from Spain, so also Belgium. And the essence is that we can all mix together. We can do this thing as a practical workshop. We had actually proposed to do that last November, but we couldn't get it done. So we have to reduce it to that. The first foundation thing of let's even have a meeting. But we are going to have it done before we are even going to have 2 sessions before the end of this year. That is basically going to address that. But for some quick information now, so that you can know where do you fit in, what kind of projects are going to come up, you may please just send your detail to Precious, and we will forward some more information to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof, for that explanation. Please, I don't see any other hand raised.
Yeah, please. Sorry, I'm Dr. Okay. Please, I'd like to know if I want to contact Dr. Agbo. How do I get his contact, please?
Let me put it on the screen. I think that would be easier.
Thank you.
In any case, if you don't even get it, just contact us at Cognitive Advisory. We have a database of our researchers that are in Europe also. So not only Dr. Agbo, we have quite a number of them. So some of the time, if you need some quick information, you can get in touch with us, and we can always link you up with our researchers that are within the Nigerian researchers that are doing work in other European nations, so that the essence is that some of those times you need quick contact, you can contact them and they can do it. So, but just be specific. And let me also be frank with you that Dr. Agbo is an overloaded human being. So he may not be able, you may send email to him, thank God for his support staff, but it's always very difficult to also get him to, because he manages almost 5 different projects simultaneously. So if you don't see his response, don't think it's snobbish. It's just
the volume of work. Thank you so much for that, sir. Well, interestingly, I'm in Germany at this time. I'm in Berlin, and I'd like to just link up with him on some information. I hope there won't be the response will not be delayed. Thank you.
No, it's
Thank you very
okay.
much.
It's
And
okay.
please also avail us of your contact because you are in Berlin now. We have a strong network within the Germany team because of PTDF scholarship database. So please, if there is anything we can also add you, send us your contact, we'll add you within that database and it becomes more, so you can also be useful to some other people also. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that's sorted. Any other question, reaction, answer? Because we are moving on to our next speaker.
Sorry, please. Just before you do, I really would please that you permit me to please leave for now, so that I will. Yeah, please. I'm really choked by time right now. Sorry for that. I really would have loved to join you till the end, but I'm really constrained right now by time.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, colleagues, and then we keep in touch.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Doctor.
Auf Wiedersehen.
Auf Wiedersehen. Dankeschön.
Auf Wiedersehen. Choice.
So our next speaker is Dr. Dalibor, and he has participated in EU-funded projects since 1996 and implemented a dozen projects in the field of education and research within the framework. Besides this, he has participated in the World Bank, IPA, and other projects. He has published 2 books on Horizon 2020 program as guidelines and recently published another 2 books on the Horizon Europe program. We have the English version. He also was instrumental in founding UXS Africa. With the team of UXS Africa, he has performed a number of training in Horizon Europe program as a consultant engaged. Can you hear me?
Victoria.
Okay, I'll continue. Let me just mute him. So I will be off now, and the next voice you will be hearing will be that of Dr. Dalibor. Dr. Dalibor, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for being part of this program. We really appreciate you.
Thank you, Precious. Hello, everyone. My name is, as Precious says, Dalibor Drljača, and today I'm going to give you some advices on how to budget the projects and how to deal with the budget in the Horizon Europe program. I hope you can see my presentation. Because of the, yes, thank you. Because of the short notice, I was a little bit running around to find out what could be of interest for you to listen, not knowing the level of knowledge about the Horizon Europe. I was hoping that I can provide some basic things, but also some advice things. Thanks to Precious, she already give a couple of words about me. So my main occupation is expert associate at Research Center of the University Clinical Center of Republic of Srpska in Banja Luka, but I'm also professor at the Faculty of Information Technology and the editor-in-chief of the Journal of Information Technology and Applications, which is dealing with the discoveries in IT sector. So I'm using this opportunity, a little bit selfish, to invite you to publish in our journal, because this year we are not charging the article processing costs. Since Precious already mentioned these things about me, I will go immediately for the content of today's presentation in the first part. So in the first part, we are going to give a hint about the types of action, eligibility of the costs, and the types of the costs. And then I will give details about of these costs from the, let's say this as a theoretical point of view, because the Brussels English is something that is really need to be somehow understood and somehow explained. It is not simple as it is written. And then we are going to talk a little bit about the lump sum model, which is now a model that is taking the advantage among the other funding models within the Horizon Europe program. The things that I'm going to tell you today are somehow in between the persons that are going to be coordinators of the actions, or those that are going to be only a partners in the project. In the project, partners that are getting the money from the European Union, we are calling beneficiaries. So the beneficiaries are all of these persons that are going to get the money through the coordinator of this action. And this is very important to distinguish, because it is essential when you are defining the consortium, as we could hear from the previous session. It is very important to distinguish your partners, your beneficiaries, and to have them complementary, not concurrently, but complementary to the flow of the action and implementation. So at your screen, you can see the percentages of the actions that we have in Horizon Europe. And if you are university, which means that you are institution, research institution or institute, then these figures are not important for you, because your funding will be 100%. But if you are belonging to the industry part, if you are belonging to the non-academic sector, then you might consider that in innovation actions, you will need to co-fund the participation in the program. So basically, if you are coming from the university or a research institute or some other institution that is in a public institution, then you are 100% eligible and 100% funded for your activities in the project. So what is important also to mention here? These three actions on your left-hand side: research and innovation action, coordination and support actions, are the most common actions in Horizon Europe. And then you have one very interesting and which is very frequently used. It's a training and mobility actions, which are connected to the Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions. This is a kind of funding mechanism that is used only for MSCA, because we are dealing here with individual mobilities. Research and innovation actions aim to create a knowledge, aim to create improvements in technology or processes or services. They are not targeting immediate approach to the markets, and therefore they are funded for basic and applied research. While from the other hand, this is distinguishing from the innovation action. Still, you need to work on a research component, but your results must be in a technology readiness level much higher. If we are talking about research and innovation actions, your technology readiness level should be from 4 to 6. But if you are talking about innovation actions, your technology readiness level of your idea, of your product, your design, your services, it must be 6 and up. So it must be one step away from the commercialization of that solution. So this is very important to have in mind when you are looking at the work program, looking at the type of the activities, type of the action that is funded, and to know what the funding rates is. For those that are really beginners, I would recommend to target the coordination and support actions, because these actions are something very similar to the Erasmus Plus program, which I believe you know better than Horizon Europe itself, because the participation in Erasmus Plus is much more flexible than in Horizon. So these coordination and support actions, they are actually preparation for bigger research or innovation projects. So they are used to gather the consortiums, to create the partnerships in advance, and then later to apply for these other activities. So from the previous session, I would just like to underline one fact that was mentioned. For the Horizon Europe program, if you want to participate in any of these actions, my advice, as someone who has participated in more than 7 Horizon 2020 and 7 framework programs, 7 projects, is if you are not skillful, if you are not really in a good possession of knowledge for project management and European rules, then I would advise you to start as a partner or as a beneficiary, not as a coordinator. Coordinator requires a lot of work to do and requires a lot of support in the work, which means financial and which means also administrative work. And we all know that the researchers, they're not so eager to work administrative works, unfortunately. But this is the fact. When you're coordinator, most of the administrative work is in the hand of the institution of the coordinator. So let me just briefly go for eligibility. It is like for any other project. The cost must incur in a connection with this action that you wrote. It cannot be used for anything else. And it must be indicated in this estimated budget during the project. So it means the spending of the money can start with the first day after the contract is signed and also the last day of the contract. So the days before and after these 2 days, you cannot justify the costs that occurred outside of these 2 days. So it is most important that you respect these deadlines, because those are the only eligible costs that can be spent within this time frame. They must be incurred by the beneficiary, which means all the invoices, all the contracts, all different kinds of engagements must be titled to the beneficiary that are participating in the projects, and it has to be very identifiable. So it must have in the lines of the description the code of the project, the title of the project, or the project identification. You will have that number. Don't worry about this. This is a very common, and everything that you create as a cost within the project, you need to record and to make it verifiable in the accounts of your institution. So it must be done by the local legislation and local accounting practices also. So you must comply with these national laws, but also to respect the rules for participation that are given in the Horizon Europe program. So moreover, the costs, they must be very reasonable, not to be inflated by some ideas and by some unjustifiable figures, and they must be justified. You have to prove it. So very simple. If you need something to be done, it has to be written in the part B of the action. So it has to be in the project proposal. Then next step is that you have invoice, contract, or something like that to ensure that for this task, this is the contract, this is the invoice. And then you need to ensure also that you have paid for these services or products or whatever it is. So it must be a banking invoice, or it must be a transaction paper that confirms that you made the payment. So all of this needs to be kept in your archive to prove that you spend the money in a proper way and in a line with the project. So the type of the costs we divide in the 2 basic categories: the costs that are directly linked to the implementation of the action, and the other group for costs that are not directly linked to the project action. So those indirect costs, I will explain them later. They refer to rent, electricity, heating, office equipment, furniture, phone costs, whatever it is necessary to support direct activities that are implemented in the project. From the other side, the direct costs are divided in the 5 main categories that you can see on the screen. We are going now to go through all of them individually. So just to clarify, the things that I'm going to tell you today, they are just a part of the wider story that can be talked about this. So you have to check all these documents that are available to you on the funding and tenders portal in the section of the recommended documentations, because there you can find the answers on your questions also. So the personal costs, they are given as a honoraria to those people that are working in implementation of the project. These costs can be based on the full-time engagement, which in this case you don't need a timesheet to run, but only the contract. But this full-time means that this person is working only on the project 100% of its working time. Or in case that you are working just some activities within the frame of implementation, then we are talking here about the part-time engagement. And for this, you need to run the timesheets. This is very important to prove how many hours and how many days this person has been dedicated to work on the project. So therefore, we have employees costs, which is the costs for your employees from your institutions that are participating in the implementation of the project. And they include all the contributions, wages, and all the salary parts that are normally created in your country. So this is what we are calling a gross amount. So all taxes and all contributions are considered in the total amount of this for these persons. Then we also talk here about the honoraria for the seconded person or staff, which means that in some case, the person that was granted, for example, with Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions, they will bring the money to your institution also. So this is the seconded person, and they get the money for these purposes. Then natural persons under the direct contract, which is most easier to explain, like in-house consultants. And then there is a special category which is referred to the small and medium-sized enterprise owners, because you know that in some companies the owners don't have salaries, they are just the owners and they collect the money. But in this case, we need to be sure that the money will not be misused. So also they need to have some kind of document that confirms the level of the salary within this framework program. So about the personal costs for justification, you would need, first of all, timesheets, but also the other documents that can evidence the work on a project, like a laboratory diaries or laboratory evidences of different kind, either electronical or paper parts, also the travel orders for going for a traveling, etc. So the main measure in the Horizon Europe program, you know, this is a person month, which is not calendar month, which is very important to know. It is not calendar month, but the hourly calculated 1 month, which means it's in my country where the working week is 40 hours and we have 4 weeks per month, which means 160 hours is equal to 1 person month. And if you go for the annual, it is 1,720 hours per annum. So it means that this is the top amount for someone that is working, top amount of hours for someone that is working 100% on the project. So this is 1,720 hours or 160 hours per month. It might be different in your country. I'm not aware of your legislation, but you are aware of that and you should calculate it as it is. A company cannot declare estimated time. Just I'm guessing this is the time that he spent. This must be proved. Therefore, it is necessary to behave very reasonably and to estimate the times or to plan the overload of these persons when budgeting in the preparation of the proposal. Then also the time allocations cannot be exaggerated, because for European projects, if you are participating in 2 or more projects, you are accumulating the time of working. So it means if you are working, for example, in 3 projects, you cannot work more than 2 hours per each of these projects. It's 6 hours because you need to work your work also, which is left 2 hours. So this is something that you need to be very precautious when you're calculating how many hours you are going to dedicate to the implementation of the project today or tomorrow. To calculate the days of the person that you need to put in these timesheets, I would give you a kind of calculation on the screen. So in Horizon Europe, the novelty is that everything is calculated in a daily rate converted into the person month for the easier calculation. So to calculate the daily rate, it is very important that you know the actual annual costs for each person, and then to divide it with a 250. Actually, 215 is a kind of average number of working days per calendar year, according to the European Union. And this is equivalent of this, what I mentioned, 1,720 hours annually. So this means this is how you are going to calculate your daily rate. But these actual annual costs are the gross amounts. Keep that in mind with all contributions and with all taxes. So the example is you have salary annually of 64.5 thousand euros and then divide it with the 215 days. It means that your daily rate is 300 euros for 8 hours of work. I hope this is very clear. So the personal cost in this case, you can calculate as a daily rate multiplied with the days worked in the project, where sometimes it can happen that you are not working a full day for the project. Then you round up or down to the nearest half day. So this is that you are going to get 0.5 elements in this equation, but it's a very simple. So just multiply this, for example, 300 euros with the 125 days working on the project. Your amount of the money of the personal costs will be 37.5 thousand euros for that year, because you worked 125 days out of 365 calendar days. So now we have to distinguish these calendar days from the days worked on the project, because days worked on the project can be, as you see, 125 days within the 365 days. So this is the calculation that you need to pay attention to when planning the personal costs. How to get the person month? It's a gross annual income with all contribution and taxes divided with 12. This is the maximum of person month value that you can gain. If we took the previous example of 64.5 thousand euros salary divided with 12, this means that this person's monthly gross salary is 5.3 thousand euros. So once when the coordinator is inviting you in the consortium, he is asking you to say your average person month cost. This is the amount that you will say for yourself, for example. But if there is 5 or 10 persons that are going to participate in the project, you need to find the average amount. I hope I was very clear. Forgive me for my English, but I hope it's understandable. So the next category is subcontracting costs. Subcontracting costs are something that is deducted from the indirect costs from 25% flat rate. And this is the type of costs that you are subcontracting some individual or company or agency to do part of the task on your behalf for the goods and the services. So it refers to both. So this is only important if you are not having capacities within the consortium to do these tasks yourself. So it's one beneficiary within the consortium that takes the role of subcontractor, and that one is paying to the subcontractors from own amount of money. So this is very important to know. It is advisable that you don't do more than 15 to 20% of the overall proposed budget to subcontracting. First of all, because you cannot subcontract the core tasks of the project, which means research part of the project, or something that strictly depends on the beneficiaries. And then you need to treat it with precaution, because you are subcontracting someone, and this is a high level risk for the project success, because it is a job that is done by the external entity. You don't know if that entity is going to be reliable 100%. You may count on it, but you never know that. The subcontracting for the actions are calculated on the basis of the actual costs. So it means what they charge you. They give you an invoice. So the justification paper in this case are the invoices for the subcontracting costs. And you need to use your usual procurement and accounting practices when making the subcontracting. For example, in my country, if you are subcontracting someone within the 3,000 euros amount, then you need only direct contract. We call it direct contracting. But if that amount goes up to 10,000 euro, then you need to have 3 offers to show that you selected the best value for the money, or in some cases, the lowest price. So this is something that you have to pay attention also in your accounting practice. The next category are the purchase costs, And we have three subcategories here. The first one is the travel costs. Travel cost happens in a project. You have different meetings. You need to go to the field to do something, especially in the agriculture projects or climate projects. You need to go somewhere, or which is even more important, you need to present the results of your research that you gain through the project to conferences and to make the exhibitions and such things. So the travel for these so-called dissemination purposes and the research purposes are fully eligible and 100% justified as a cost. They can vary from the nature of the project, which is normal if you go for the clinical trials, climate or agriculture or anything else, and then it's not like in the social sciences. It is usual practice that every project, every consortium has minimum one consortium meeting per year that is done on site. This was happening until the COVID time. And then after the COVID time and during the COVID time, people started to have even monthly virtual meetings to manage the project. So you can plan in your action, in your proposal, you can plan between 1 and 2 meetings, not more than 4 meetings for these purposes, because this will increase the travel costs of your project, not the quality part of your project, which is research. So be very careful when selecting the transportation, because the high transportation costs will need additional justification. You can pay also the accommodation for this travel and also subsistence in line with the usual practices for the travel. So in my country, we have some ceilings for traveling for European Union countries and some ceilings for traveling, for example, in China, in Japan. They are quite different, and that depends on from country to country. And also relevant to this is the level of the funding that you can spend on hotels. So how to calculate? First of all, calculate on a real costs basis, because for all of this you will need to have the invoices to prove that you used these costs correctly. So the accommodation is also supposed to be done on a regular and on actual costs, while subsistence depends on your national legislation. Second is the purchase cost for the equipment. This is something that people are usually asking a lot of questions. I would like to buy equipment from the project. Can I buy? General answer is yes, you can buy the equipment from the project. But you have to pay attention when buying this equipment. It is very tricky. You need to know the depreciation period of the equipment you're buying. This information is usually available in the national legislation, and you need to be aware of that fact and of the fact in which year of the project you are purchasing the equipment, because the costs of the equipment purchase are eligible only in period when the project is using this equipment. I will give an example. You're in the table below. This is one very nice table that you might use if you want to calculate your depreciation costs and how to do it. Simply, for example, we have first line nuclear magnet resonance, which is, let's say, some 10,000 units, and its amortization time or depreciation time is 10 years. So this means that after the 10 years, this piece of equipment will be zero in your accounting. So for the project, we are going to use it 100% of the time, and we are going to use it in 3 years' time. When we calculate depreciation within the project time, we come to the amount of 3,000 out of these 10,000, which means that only these 3,000 are eligible for the project. The rest you need to contribute with your own funding. So this is very important to learn. And this is how you are going to be on the safe side when you are using the purchase costs for equipment. But another example is, for example, the computer, the simple laptop or something like this, where it costs, for example, 1.5 thousand euros amortization time or depreciation time in my country is 3 years. So if I buy it in the first year of the project immediately, and I use it only for the project purposes, I will get the depreciation of 1.5 thousand, which means that at the end of the project, I can write off this equipment from my accounts. And this is 100% given money for the equipment. So if you have that kind of equipment that can be depreciated through the time of the project, use of the project, then this is the place where you can put these costs. The costs for other goods, works, and services refers to consumable supplies for the promotion and dissemination materials, unless you didn't do this with the subcontracting. Also very important is to make the protection of the results for the intellectual property rights, etc. So these are the costs actually that are not directly influencing the research work, but they are complementing the research work with the promotion effects. So it is very advisable to split this into the subcategories like materials, consumables, computing, IPR, services. It's because of easier calculation. These costs are also actual costs, so you also need invoices for this, and you need to keep the accounting as usual. The other costs are divided into the, according to the grant agreement, model grant agreement, divided into the 8 categories. So not all projects have all of these categories, but I will just go very briefly through them. For example, you're in position that your project is giving the micro grants to someone else. Then you will have this DIV1, financial support to the third parties. So you're going to calculate this as a other cost. Then internally invoiced goods and services, for example, invoicing for the premises or something like that. This is going to be also taken into account, but in that case, this will be deducted from your indirect cost. So this will not be calculated in the full amount of the indirect cost, 25% flat rate. Then transnational access to research infrastructure units. This is a specific cost that is directed to the research infrastructure chapter of the Horizon Europe, where it is allowed researchers to pay to access some research infrastructure. And then the hosting institution is getting these costs. Again, this is also taken out of the indirect flat rate cost. Virtual access, PCP and PPI procurement costs, they are also eligible, and they are going into this indirect costs amount. But Euratom and ERC costs are exempt from this flat rate. So I will not pay attention more for this because these are really specific types of costs. And if in case you have some questions, you can always consult the Horizon Europe regulations and the model grant agreement. This is important. It's a eligible indirect cost. What it means indirect cost? It means the costs that are contributing to the implementation of the action in indirect way, and they depend on the percentage of justified direct costs, all 5 categories previously. So this is up to, it's not fixed 25, it's up to 25 of eligible and justified direct costs. So it means that after you justify the direct costs in the first reporting period, the Commission would say, we are accepting your report. Then you can count that the amount of 25% is eligible for the amount you justify. Otherwise, if you underspend or overspend, this 25% is not 25 anymore. So you have to pay attention when calculating this 25% during the implementation of the project. In preparation phase, it's very easy. You just plan the direct costs and add 25%. But in implementation, you must be very careful on how much did you spend on direct costs and if it's justified. So for this, the Commission is not requiring you to give the papers. So it is given for you to support the action. And they don't need from you the papers like invoices, contracts, etc. But you need to have it because of your national legislation and because of the possible audit that can be sent from the Commission. the Commission in that case will just check the validity of the spending so that you didn't misuse the money for some other purposes except for the project purposes. So this is something that you have to bear in mind. Linked third-party cost is something that you will not maybe be very frequent with this, because these linked third parties are some entities that are somehow legally bound to your institution. For example, you are participating in the project as a university, and then another member of the consortium is one of your institutes that is autonomous. Then you are in a commission of the in the commission eyes, you have these linked third parties because they have the same governing board, they have the same managers or something like that. So this linked third parties must be indicated in the proposal at the proposal stage, in the beginning, because it must be known in order to calculate all the costs and to apply the rules about the eligibility, funding rates, and the third country participation. So the number of these linked third parties is not in a question. Just you have to be aware that the beneficiaries are those that are implementing the actions. And you can just help and ask for help and assistance from these linked third parties for some tasks, not for the core tasks again. Ineligible costs, according to the model grant agreement, are listed here. I'm not going to read you all because this is very strictly defined in the model grant agreement, and you will be aware of this, and you will be informed by your coordinator, or if you are coordinator, you will have to inform your partners to be very careful about these things. So it is very important that your institution is financially sound and can prove this, that your liabilities and that your balance sheets are okay, and that you don't have any kind of losses or any kind of debts in order for this money to be taken in the wrong purposes. So, for example, when I'm advising people how to deal with this money, I'm always advising them to open a special bank account or a partition in the bank account of the institution where the money from the project will be deposited. And then that money will be available only to those persons that are working on the project, not used for any other purposes except for the project purposes. Usually the institutions accept this kind of proposals, and when you tell them that these 25% of indirect costs will be given to the institution for supporting the project and maybe to pay some other costs of the institution that are linked to the project, then they will approve you to this. So this is the not exhaustive list, and you can find the Article 6.1 and 6.2 and also Article 31 and some other articles in the model grant agreement. It's a quite nice and big document. And also for explanations, I can advise you to look at the annotated model grant agreement. This is a very complex document. Usually in Horizon 2020, this document was on a volume of 1,000 pages because it's a model grant agreement with explanations and examples for each of the articles in the model grant agreement. So this is a very useful document that is evolving from day to day, and you need to check for the updated information, but generally gives the explanation what you can do and what you cannot do in order to implement your action. When we talk about the budget, which is the topic of today, the budgeting tables you can find in both of the parts of the application. I'm giving here example for research innovation actions and innovation actions. So in a part A, you have specific budget for proposal part where you enter the summative budget, the summary of the budget and per categories. So it means for the whole project, not for the individual participant. This is the task of the coordinator, and the coordinator is inserting this data into this table, not you as a partner. This is an advantage for the partners. You just give your proposal, how much money you would like to get for the amount of work that is required from you from the project. And then in part B, in the implementation section, there are plenty of tables starting from F to J. In these tables, you have to justify the costs and to plan the costs for your action. So this is how it looks in the part A. So the shaded cells that you can see, they are automatically calculated. Depending on the number of partners, the coordinator needs to insert the personnel costs, subcontracting costs, purchase costs, other costs and categories. The indirect costs will be automatically calculated, and total eligible costs will be also automatically calculated. Considering that the funding rate is 100%, for example, because most of you are coming from university, this amount will be replicated in the rest of the sheets. What here you can add is something that you mentioned in the previous session. In case that your budget is over the one that the commission is granting, then other sources of financing, financial contributions, and own resources should be inserted in these empty fields on the right-hand side. Then the second budget is also about these other cost categories that I mentioned, and this depends strictly on the type of the action and also on the program within the Horizon Group. So the tables in the part B, you can see on the screen here, one part of the table. First, this is the first table is 3.1F, summary of staff efforts. So for example, consider that your university in the first line, and then you have work packages in the columns. So this means that you will be able to follow up for your work, for each work package, what is the person month required, or what person months are necessary to achieve objectives and to perform and implement the activities within this work package. And then in the last column is a total person month per participant. So when you calculate all of this, the figures from the rows and from the columns must meet each other in the bottom right cell. So the purchase costs are given for each partner individually and for each type of the cost. You see that there is a travel and subsistence, equipment, other goods and services, and remaining purchase costs. So for the justification, for example, travel and subsistence, you planned 1,000 euro. Justification, you put travel for the annual meeting in 2024. So this is a kind of filling in this table, because in the justification or in description, you need to elaborate how you are going to spend this money. So the travel cost of 1,000 euro is a flight ticket and accommodation and subsistence for the participation at the meeting or participation at the field action, etc. The table 3.1G, subcontracting costs, this table is filled in only by the beneficiary that has subcontracting costs. So not all partners will have these costs explicitly in the application form. Table 3.1I, other cost categories, where you can charge for the internally goods and services, etc. So this is something that also, again, the ones that have it, they put it there. But in-kind contributions are given in a 3.1J table, where you have to show the in-kind contributions provided by the third parties. So example for the calculation of the budget, let's say that the research and innovation action is in a case which is a 100% funding rate, and it's a 25% flat rate automatically calculated. So you will just fill in the first three categories. I just minimize this because of the sake of the space, but this that I showed you previously is the real table. So the actual costs for direct personal cost is, for example, 10,000 units. For the other direct cost, 2,000, and for direct costs of subcontracting, it's a 500, which means this is indirect cost, 25% is 3,000 of something. Then the total estimated budget is 15,500, considering that this is the reimbursement rate of 100%. This is the total requested EU contribution. So it's very simple to calculate. It's very easy, but to come to these figures, you need to do a hard work, which means you need to charge for all activities the time and the money that you are going to spend in order to implement this activity. This is just a summative tables. The next part is something that it was piloted in Horizon 2020. Now it's most common in Horizon Europe, and it has intention to become a major funding mechanism in Horizon Europe. It's a lump sum. So the lump sums are like it is wording saying itself, they are defined upfront and fixed in the grant agreement. So when you have the call that is saying that this action is going to be funded under the lump sum model grant agreement, then you are aware that you need to lump sum all amounts in advance. So the only thing is that you can receive the lump sum amounts only upon completion of the whole work package. So when planning the project that is funded by lump sum, you need to plan the work packages as a units. So when you complete the work package, you get the money for that work package. Otherwise, it will not function opposite. In other models of the implementation, you get the pre-financing, then spend the money, and then reports, and then you ask for the additional money, blah, blah. But in the lump sum, you first need to work and to complete the activities in order to get the funding, and then to report it, and then the fund comes. So it means that this is a simplification and makes easier ex post audit because it reduces administrative and financial errors. This is very important. It is easier to access the program because former forms of calculating the costs and making this financial reporting were very complex. And some people that were novice and they were not experienced with the European framework programs, they got lost sometimes, and then they have made mistakes in calculations and in justification of costs, and then that created a lot of problems. So lump sum you can see as a kind of simplification and also making easier for the participants to do the calculations and to make the overall accounting of the project. It has certain level of the flexibility, but the performance, the results of the activities must be judged by the same standards as the regular standard procedures. There are two options. The first option is when the call for proposals defines a fixed lump sum. So you will find that sentence in the call for proposal. And then budget of the requested proposal must be equal to this fixed lump sum, which means that your proposal must describe use of resources adequate to this fixed lump sum. The other option, which is frequently used, is that you as an applicant define the lump sum for your proposal. So it means you are free to define the amount necessary to carry out your work package, to carry out your activities. So again, this is the task of the coordinator. You as a partner in this case would be asked what time do you need to implement the activities, and what is your estimation of the budget for this. But the lump sum shares are strictly decided by the coordinator, because it might happen that you are not the only one participating in the implementation of that work package. You are just one gear in the whole machinery. So the coordinator or the work package leader must to assemble all of these requests and then to define what is the real lump sum to meet these mobilized resources for this work package. So it's very critical, it's very important that you know how to do this. To write lump sum proposal, there is no difference than writing the regular proposal. Just you must pay attention that these activities must be divided into work packages easy to justify with a lump sum amounts. So this is the only things that you have to bear in mind besides the regular thinking about what is going to be which of the work packages. There are always problems with the project management work package and the dissemination and exploitation and communication work package, because these work packages should last the whole project. So if you put this, for example, work package as a project management as a one work package, then it will mean that the money for the Project management you will get only at the end of the project. So the advice is to divide it per the reporting periods. The reporting periods are very well known. So it's usually 18 months. Then you have the first reporting period. Then every 18 months is another reporting period, depending how long is your project in total. But this is the tricky issue because you have to divide these activities into several work packages in order to follow up the activities and also to, at the same time, to be paid for this, because nobody is going to wait 3 years to get paid for the work. And come on, let's be realistic. So in a case of 3 years project, my proposal is to divide it into the 2 work packages, Project Management 1 and Project Management 2, and make the consolidation of these 2 work packages so that after the 18 months of the working in the project, you will be paid for this work package because it is completed. And that is the most important. So evaluation of lump sum proposals is done on the same basis as for the all projects. It's excellence, impact, and implementation. So this is not going to be different compared to all others. So I will give you just a couple of hints in a preparation of budget that I already gave, but also general hints. It is very important to read very, very carefully all the guidelines and documents, not only on the budget, but also on the participation and eligibility of the activities. Because eligibility of activities is eligibility of your costs. If your activities are eligible, then the costs that are borne by implementation of these activities should be eligible also. Then be very realistic. It is very important to be realistic, not to be megaloman or having some not realistic dreams about the projects, because in essence, these projects are not profitable. These are not for-profit projects. They are for covering the costs of the activities. And then your profit is in your published papers, in your processes, in your products that you are going to commercialize, etc. So itself, the money for the project, they should be treated as a non-profit money. Take it into consideration when planning the budget. Take possible inflation trends. This is very important because, for example, the annual salary will show increase in 2 years' time, and then you didn't consider this. How people are taking this into consideration? It is a kind of informal and non-written rule that you increase the possible inflation items for 10%. This is something that you will compensate eventual increase of inflation in your country. Normally, this you cannot foresee. Therefore, also there is a one article in the model grant agreement that says force majeure, like it was the case with the COVID pandemics. Then this article says that if it was out of your power to manage these costs, then this cost can be justified and can be increased, but then you have to decrease on the other side. The total amount must stay the same. So to try to in the planning phase, try to consider these inflation trends and try to accommodate them somehow inside your total amount. Don't forget, it's very important that all the amounts are gross amount with all taxes and contributions included. This is very important because people usually misinterpret this and give net amount, which is a big mistake, and then that the difference must be paid from the own funding. So if you are coordinator for the beginning of the preparation of the budget, you will ask a PIC code from your partner, you will ask number of persons, their short CVs, their annual or person month amounts. And then these are the details that you need to have prepared before any kind of participation in the project. This is a kind of your ID, which you need to have. So for you, it's easy. Calculate your annual salary that is in a gross amount, divide with the 12, and this is your person month that you are working for that time of the for that amount of the time. Then ensure that all partners are aware of the workload and the corresponding budget before the submission. This is very important. Sometimes it happens that during the project implementation, one of the partners says, oh, this is too much work. I didn't meant that this is going to be such a huge work, and I charged less money because I was thinking this and that. So no thinking when the project starts. Think before the project starts. Think on all possible causes that may increase the value of your work in the project. And be sure that you charge the money according to the time that is adequate to finish and to implement the activities. This is very important. And another important issue is that the money cannot be charged based on the merit. This is what people usually misunderstood when they are participating with European country institutions. The average salary in European country is really high for some researchers. They are really high, and it happens. I'm aware of that fact because I was participating in so many projects that sometimes I have to work 5 times more for the same person month amount that my colleague from Germany has. So this is because of my salary, not because of his. So this kind of work overload you have to consider when you're planning the budget. Sometimes someone is going to make a very small contribution to the project for a high amount of money. And some of them should work a lot of things to be very close to this amount of money. So my proposal is, if you are in a position to divide the budget according to the workload, do it to see that everyone has equal workload, disregard the money. Because a workload is 5 hours for this institution, 5 hours for this institution. You don't go into the details, what is the amount of money they are going to get for this, because you will be disappointed in some elements. So don't look at that. Look at the time spent for the project, and don't look as a merit. You may have a Nobel laureate in your consortium, but he has its own money, and he has to do his work, and you have to do your work. So don't give extra money to that person because it's a Nobel laureate. It's just the money that you need for this part of the work to be done. And in this case, if you are friendly and collaborative, then everyone will know what they have to do in the project and for which time and for which amount of the money, because they expressed these figures. So these were a kind of hints and tips that I wanted to give you. So I think on the end of the presentation, there are questions planned. So I will continue immediately for the second part of my presentation, which is addressing the legal and ethic considerations in the Horizon Europe projects. And there are many questions that we need to go through this, but I will try to be very fast, considering that you had already one session and now you have to listen another hour of this presentation. So the legal considerations in this aspect, we are going to pay attention on all of them here very briefly, but I will pay attention especially on gender equality, on ethics, security, and open science, and also on intellectual property right, because these are the most important. According to the European Commission, gender equality now is a cross-cutting principle in the Horizon Europe program. This is very important, not only from the aspect of the participation of a woman in a consortium, it's important from a different aspects. And the eligibility criterion for all projects is that all public bodies and research organizations and higher education establishments are obliged to have gender equality plan published publicly on a website of the institution. So it means that before the project starts, this plan must be available. So in a preparation phase, it must be available, and you have to put, there is a one window inside the application form where you have to put the link to your gender equality plan. It is a default requirement to integrate the gender dimension in the research and innovation, and it is, as I said, cross-cutting issue in the whole program. And the target is to have balance of 50% between women and female and male participants in advisory bodies, expert group, and evaluation panels. But gender balance among researchers is also very important. So if you are assembling the team at your institution, try to get at least 50-50 of the different genders in your team. This is going to be evaluated positively, and this is going to be seen in the eyes of the evaluators as an additional effort you invested in order to have this excellent proposal funded. And also what is important, it's sometimes it's very misinterpreted well. Gender balance also refers to the gender balance of the target group of your research. Because if you take, for example, the medicine, and in some cases, you need to examine how this disease is affecting females and how the disease is affecting the males. There are some differences, and you need to examine this. So this is also important field of implementation of the gender equality in your research proposal. So you can find many of these documents on the European Union sites and funding and tenders portal. But I will draw to your attention the book that you see the cover here. It is a guidance on how to create gender equality plans, and this is something that will be a requirement from for the next program, definitely. So the importance, I already mentioned scientific importance because of the effects on the research outcomes, societal relevance, how to improve this, how to kill these stereotypes between the genders and participation of the female researchers in the work. But it is very important that you reflect wherever you can this gender equality as a positive aspect. So you need to prove that you did not disregard intentionally or accidentally. So you must be aware that you're creating something and that you are intending to involve both of the groups here. There are some other requirements that when researchers are signing the participation lists, for example, if you require them to select the gender, you have to say they can be male, female, and non-binary because of the LGBTQI plus group. They require this, and this is now European Commission has accepted this to be implemented in their documents. So try to read all these documents. You have links here also on this slide to be more involved about the gender equality. Just briefly about the gender equality plans, how to make this process. This is first of all a public document that is formally approved by your management, and it dedicates resources to implement these gender equality activities that you put in this plan. For this, you need to make the data collection and to monitor implementation of this and to implement overall acceptance of the gender equality as a paradigm. Then you need to perform some training and capacity building within your institution. And then these costs can be also calculated in the gender equality plan. Just to mention that the costs of the publication of or preparation of gender equality plans are not eligible for Horizon Europe program. It must be done before you start the application of the project. So in that plan, there are usually these 5 sections that you can see on this slide here: work-life balance, gender balance and leadership, recruitment and career progression, and then teaching and research content, and also measures that you undertake for gender-based violence, including sexual harassment at your institution. Most of institutions already have implemented documents containing these elements here. So this is nothing new for any of institutions, but this is something just now that is a requirement to participate in Horizon Europe program. The second part is often the researchers from the social sciences and humanities says, we don't want to participate in Horizon Europe because there is no calls for social sciences and humanities. And this is wrongfully misinterpreted because SSH is implemented almost in every segment and every call of the Horizon Europe program. So SSH is another cross-cutting issue and is used to complement the other research with its power. So it is the point is to integrate this SSH into all research aspects and all research disciplines in order to give them the complementarity to see the effects on the societies, because the SSH disciplines like sociology, economics, psychology, history, culture, and arts, and political sciences, they can contribute to better understand why this product is going to be easily marketed and easily sold on the market. And for this, you need an economist. You don't expect from the physicist to know how the market is going to accept a product that is dealing with the physics. So this is something that economist has to do, has to evaluate. And then this is something why you need SSH in almost all projects in the Horizon Europe program. So this is something that is very important. I will not pay more attention to this. You will have the slides. I will forward slides to Precious as the organizer, and she can distribute you the slides freely. So SSH is involved in all clusters, missions, and partnerships throughout the whole Horizon Europe program. That's the point. We would like to see in Horizon Europe more social innovation, which is a system changer, which makes the game changing in the society, which improves the society. And it's usually based on quadruple or even quintuple helix approach by connecting mostly the public authorities, business, industry, academia, but also the citizens. And there is a completely new paradigm called citizen science that is developing very rapidly now. So this is the social innovations concerns all the program parts, and you can involve in all of your proposals. It's important that these social innovations will serve to protect environment, economy, digital, cultural heritage, sovereignty, and democratic priorities, which are set as a common attributes of the Commission documents and strategies. So this is something that is very important to learn. Then a very important part of this presentation today is this about the ethics and integrity, research integrity primarily. So the ethics is very important, and you deal with ethics in a couple of ways. First of all, you have to acknowledge the ethical issues in a part A. This is just acknowledgement. You just tick the box. I will show you the template. You just tick the box of the ethic issue that is raised in your project. And then in part B, in a part B2, actually, it's a second part of the application, you have to describe in details the ethics and give the proofs that the ethical principles and integrity is ensured. So the ethics is now also a very important part of the evaluation, because these ethical principles, which are considering applicable European, international, and national laws, like a Charter for Fundamental Rights or UN Human Rights, etc., they must be fully compliant in your proposal. So pay particular attention to the principles of proportionality, privacy, protection of personal data, physical and mental integrity of persons, non-discrimination by any position, ensure protection of the environment and human health. Very often people disregard one important ethic issue, and this is protection of personal data, and they start to perform surveys and analysis collecting the personal data and not declaring this as an ethical issue. So this kind of projects that don't declare this, they may find themselves in the ethical evaluation procedure and could be negatively evaluated. So pay attention on all of this that I mentioned here. And one very important thing, there is no dual use of your project. What it means dual use? Your application in your project must be only focused on civil applications, not on military application. I know this is very difficult in some cases. It's very difficult to distinguish what your research result is going to be used for. But you, in your project proposal, you put the fence around yourself and say, this is exclusively for civil application, and we do not consider use of these results in the military purposes. So this is something that you need really to pay attention. And from the ethics aspect, there are some actions that are not eligible for funding, and those are primarily in the medicine, which are aimed on the human cloning, the genetic heritage of human beings, embryos, etc. So any artificial creation or destruction of human embryos, for example, is a critical ethical issue, but also not to mention those people from the Faculty of Medicine, they are fully aware that any kind of research to the Faculty of Medicine must first go to the ethical council or ethical board, whatever it is called in your country. So this is also that you need to describe in the project, that it has previous approval, that it will request approvals in steps that are follow-up, etc. So this is something that must be completely described in the project proposal. The ethic appraisal procedure is carried out to see and to address this ethical dimension and to see the compliance with the fundamental ethical principles. In the project application, you will have these two elements that I mentioned in a part A and a part B2. And then if your proposal is successful, then ethical screening will be done by the external expert. And in implementation phase, in the ethics review, you will be invited to allow ethic expert reviewers to check your proposal and your results. So this is something that you need to be aware of, that this is normal part of the implementation of the project, and that this may happen in the implementation phase. The following slide shows you the complexity of the ethical screening, ethical appraisal process. So it means that if there are no ethics issues, you follow the green line, it is ethics clearance, your project is free to be funded. If there are ethic issues, if they are complex and serious, it goes for the specific evaluation by the 5 different ethics evaluators that Commission is engaging for these purposes. And even if it's scientifically approved, so if your project is scientifically okay and is proposed for funding, this ethics assessment can prevent you from getting the funding because you didn't pay attention to the ethics sufficient. Then from this group, you can go in 2 directions. If it's sufficiently addressed, then you have to complement your application with certain elements, or you will need to go for the conditional clearance, where during the implementation you will be monitored and you will be requested to give additional explanations and proofs that your proposal is implemented ethically correct. Security as another issue is rised up, especially in the recent events in the last 3 years, with the growth of these security considerations all over the world. So not only because of that, but also the projects often deal with very specific and very sensitive information that could be treated as a classified information, and then it applies rules for the protection of the classified information, which you can find in Article 13 and Annex 5 of the Model Grant Agreement. And this, for example, refers if the project deals with the European cross-border collaboration. And in that case, for example, third countries are not allowed to participate at all, but this is strictly defined in the work program. So you can always read these security disclaimers in the call for proposals. And the security check itself is performed in the security self-assessment. You have the template for this on the Funding and Tenders portal. Security review procedure and security checks, which deals in the same way as the ethics, except this is now just from the aspect of the security. So this diagram here shows you how it goes in the proposal preparation. The applicant itself performs the self-assessment, and this becomes the part of the documents that are submitted. Then the proposals above the threshold, which are considered to be funded, they are going to pass the security review, which is done by the granting authority, commission, or even national security experts if there is a necessity for this. And then in implementation phase through the deliverables. So this is the table from the part A. that you need to acknowledge, because here you just say if you have or if you don't have the ethic and security issues. So pay attention, the last column is titled page. There you are going to put the page from the part B where you explain this ethic or security issue that you said yes. So if you check all the boxes with no, then no need to fill in the page. So it means you don't have declared any ethics or security issues. So just to mention briefly, humans, human embryonic cells, tissues and cells, personal data, use of animals, participation of non-EU countries, then some ethic issues related to the environment, health and safety. Artificial intelligence is something that I'm going to mention later on, but this is something now that became very important from both of the aspects in ethics and security. So this use of artificial intelligence will need additional explanation in the application phase. Then ethics self-assessment tables, they look like this. So this is something that you will put electronically, or better to say, this is the task of the coordinator, again, because that person or that institution is fulfilling this part A on the system. And this is also the other questions. They're relevant more for two-stage calls, like I heard today that one of professors mentioned. They applied to the first stage, now waiting for the information, are they pass or not, for this, or they will be called for the second stage to make the full proposal, and the clinical trials. In case of the two-stage calls and the clinical trials, these additional other questions are supposed to be completed. Another important issue is the dissemination exploitation, but all of this you already have elaborated in the part B of the application. But here it is important to mention that especially the exploitation of the research results. It is an obligation to use Horizon Results platform, and this is the task of the coordinator to ensure that all project results are published on this portal. And this is also for the others very interesting place, because this is the place where the results are published. So this is the place where you can find idea for your proposal, for your potential proposal, for your research that you have in mind. So you can see if someone has been doing this or not. And then also this is the place where you can find the potential partners for your proposal, because this is in this platform you will find the information who done this. And there are different ways how you can exploit the results. And this table here is giving you an explanation about the joint investment, spin-off, licensing, internal product development or services, collaborative research, how to deal with results. And this is all relevant because of the intellectual property rights that I'm going to tell a little bit later. Since a couple of years ago, the European Commission has introduced the open science paradigm, because these framework programs are funded by the public money, and as such, these results of the projects should be publicly available. But you're aware that some magazines, some journals are not allowed open access publishing, and they want to charge the fees for this, etc. So the Commission managed this open science paradigm and the initiative to share the knowledge and tools among the academic community. So this open science provides the requirements for scientific publication, but also for research data relevant to the verification of the scientific achievements. It is usual, and you're aware of that results of the Horizon Europe grants are published in open access. That's a requirement, where you can have this gold and green route in open access that is presented here. And due to the time limit, I will not go into the details. Just I can say that these two are most common open access practices, and you can see the possibility how you are going to deliver your results in which route. And it is important that this you explain in your proposal so that it's obvious. So it's very important that you pay attention where do you and how do you deposit the results. So it must be primarily in a machine readable format based on FAIR principles. I will explain FAIR principles. And you must to deposit in trusted repositories, which can be certified repositories or disciplinary and domain repositories, or it can be a general purpose or institutional repositories like Zenodo, etc. So not considered repositories, pay attention to this, please. These are not personal websites or databases, publisher websites, cloud storage devices like Dropbox, Google Drive, etc., OneDrive, whatever it is, or academia, edu, and research guild. These are not considered as repositories, and it's because of these FAIR principles where your information and metadata must be found in a findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable way. So this, if you respect this, then these repositories must be compatible with the FAIR principles. And for your licensing, you should be using the Creative Commons Attribution International Public License of your choice. But please pay attention which kind of route you're asking for your open access. Then also, this is about the results, but the data that are used to get the results are also having the same rules. So you need to treat them the same way as you treated the results. Key enabling technologies are also one of the cross-cutting issues, but I'm underlying here artificial intelligence as a very important issue. Nowadays, you are aware of the use of artificial intelligence like ChatGPT, Copilot, etc. And the Commission recently issued one very important document, which is a Digital Act on Artificial Intelligence, which insists on provision of trustworthiness artificial intelligence-based systems or techniques, which are providing safe, secure, and responsible environment for work. And then these things, they must be responsible towards the community. So they must respect this ethics and security that we mentioned previously. So relevant to EU taxonomy, I just wanted to mention here a principle of do not significant harm. So you have to state in your proposal this do not significant harm as a part of the Green Deal regulation of European Union, where you are going to explicitly point on the environmental protection and the factors that may change the environment. Then innovation procurement is something that is very important, and two types of innovation procurement that are supported, but I will not go into details with this. So the last part of the presentation is about the IPR. It is a very essential issue because all of your knowledge can be treated as an IPR, and you need to protect it when you're entering into the project arena. So it is primarily because of you. And the IP management must be described in the project proposal. So before entering into the grant agreement and before dealing with the project, you must be aware of your IPRs, which means the background. This is the expression that the Commission is using. The background is all IPR that is introduced into the project by any of the beneficiaries within the project consortium. So it means if you introduce any methodology, method, machinery, anything that has an IPR, you need to announce it and to give the licenses and permissions to partners in the consortium that needs to use it. So this is something that you need to do before the project starts. Also, foreseeing possible IPR issues is something that is necessary to be done in a proposal phase and in implementation phase. And then to define who is the owner of this IPR. For example, in the project, you're going to create a software that is going to be commercialized, but there are going to be used IPR from different parties. Then at the level of the consortium, you are going to agree on the on the ownership over that software and royalties and all other issues that may appear. So therefore, you have to be very aware of the IPR before the project, during the grant application, the grant agreement preparation. So it means what is supposed to be done and what are the results, and also upon the project completion, where you need to be sure that your IPR is going to be protected and that you are going to use it as it's proper. Therefore, as a novelty, there is a results ownership list that is a part of the application. And then this is a kind of table that you need to prepare with what is the result. For example, prototype A, ownership of this prototype is joint, where you see that the beneficiary one owns 51% of the ownership, and the rest two beneficiaries share at their own shapes. So this is the table that you will need to have in order to protect your IPR, where you will also explain to the evaluators and to the whole community who is the owner and whom they should address in case they are interested in that product or process. There is a specific website by the European Commission that deals with this IPR because it's a crucial issue, and there are even some guidelines for IPRs in the USA or China and how to protect it. And this is a website I would like to draw your attention to this. And with this, I would like to end this presentation of mine, invite you to collaborate with the European institutions and universities in Horizon Europe. It is difficult, it is demanding, but it's very fruitful, it's very joyful, it's very good to have this experience. I'm telling this as one that is coming from a very poor country from Europe and has participated in so many projects and have seen the positive and benefits of this participation. With all respect to you that have stayed to listen to me, I'm now handing back the floor to Precious. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dalibor. Thank you for that very informative presentation. We really appreciate it. It was a whole lot of information. So this video will be available on our website so that you can watch it. And we really want our researchers to be able to move from just being participant coordinators. So if you want to handle your own project, I think the budgeting, the legal structure, they're all very important for you to be familiarized with. So this video is going to be available on our website, so you can, and we'll also send them to you so that you can listen and listen again. And as Dr. Dalibor has said, he will make the presentation available, his presentation available. Thank you so much again, Dr. Dalibor. We really appreciate. So please, if there are any questions, let me just see your hands raised. Just raise your hands, and then we will have Dr. Dalibor answer our question.
It seems too many information, so you cannot even get to the question. Yes, it's always like that with the Horizon Europe program. Too many information, too many things to do. Therefore, I said go step by step. Don't try to fetch everything. Just read a lot. This is important.
Okay. So, I don't know if Professor Ajayi is still here.
All right, I don't know if I can ask my question.
Okay, please go ahead.
All right, yeah, thanks so much. I sent a message to the box that you did, well, thank you for the excellent presentation. Please, I'd like to know the name of your journal. You mentioned the name of the journal at the beginning. I didn't catch up with that. I'd like to know that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Yes, this is the journal I put in the box, the website. It's jita-au.com. So it's a journal of information technology and applications, where we are publishing the results from the researchers in the field of the in different domains of the information technologies, starting from even from applied areas like transportation, etc., artificial intelligence, Bitcoin, for example, like e-commerce and such things. So I'm inviting you to visit the website. In the archive, there is a previous 26 issues. So you can find we had more than 1,000 different submissions, and we also had more than 100 authors from different countries worldwide. Yes, we are the journal that is not on the Web of Science list, but we are trying to reach that list. So if you are interested for any kind of collaboration, feel free to contact me. You will find the contact address and the contact form on the website. So no problem. I will be very happy to respond.
Hello.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hello.
Yes, Professor Dogo, you can go.
Yeah, I'd like to thank the presenter with such a very impressive and detailed presentation. I want to find out how you will calculate the percent month, is it from your basic salary, percent hour, or from a lump sum of your yearly income?
Yes, thank you for the question. Yes, the calculation, it goes for the actual annual, so it means for the whole year income. What it means income. For example, you work at two institutions, one you work full-time, the other one work part-time, and you receive the salary from both of the institutions. So your gross amount for the month of January, for example, is both of the salaries. So it means you are calculating all your incomes for the year and divide it with 12, and that is your person month amount. So this is, yes, this is the amount of your one person month. So in the project, you are working, for example, 30%, and you will get out of that one person amount. In the reporting period, you will get half of the person amount. So you will get half of the amount you calculated in advance. I hope it is clear.
Yeah, it's very clear. Thank you so much. It's very, very clear.
Welcome.
Because when you have people that come in and not completely in the project, how do you handle that? Like technical, yeah.
Therefore, the daily rate is introduced.
Okay.
Yes, yes. Therefore, the daily rate is introduced, and the day is calculated on an 8-hour basis.
Okay.
But I would recommend 7.5 hours base, because nobody pays for the free time, for the pausa.
Yeah. Okay.
But if it's calculated in your regular salary that the pausa is paid, yeah, okay, 8 hours, it's okay.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Thank you. You talked about ethics. Like our project involves the One Health, human, animals, and even the environment. So I was supposed to have let's say ethical clearance from both the animal use, the human use, and also the environmental persons.
Yeah, you will have to have from environmental, you will have to state this: do not make significant harm. So this is one issue. So I mentioned this as in the last part. And then for the ethical clearance, you will have to have a previous ethical board agreement from your institution. And from another institution that is dealing with the veterinarian part, they will have to provide you with the clearance for the veterinarian part, because I don't know if you are dealing with the both of them. You consider here mice only or some other species?
Yeah, we consider mice, cattle, livestock. We're actually looking at vectors on both humans and animals, like ticks, mosquitoes, and flies. Generally, both they have that in humans and animals. So we really have to get information from such.
Because there is a slight distinction. It is not so important, but for example,
Yeah.
sometimes if it's a medical research and involves mice and hamsters and these things, which are laboratory animals, then you need only the clearance from your ethical board because it's
Yeah,
involved.
okay.
But if if your research goes to farming premises and then to do it on a cattle, on livestock and such things, then you might need additional clearance from the veterinarian point of view.
Animal use, yeah.
Yes,
Okay, the animal use committee. Okay, that's all right. Okay.
exactly.
But do those board must they be certified by the EU or the ones that are certified by the institutions?
By institutions.
Okay, okay, oh, that's okay, that's fine.
Yes, but
That's great.
somebody has to confirm that what you are doing is ethically correct, and that is the
Yeah.
authority that is in your country relevant.
Oh
So
yeah.
there's it.
Oh, that's great. Okay.
Absolutely.
Like we have the NGREC, so National Ethical Committee. Yeah.
It is
All right.
advisable that in the preparation stage you get the paper from them in which they
Yeah.
state this, and you add that as additional documentation to the project application. Because in that
Okay.
case, it is official that this institution is eligible in the country to provide this information, and they stay behind you in the project and blah, blah, blah. This is a kind of support letter from that institution.
Okay. Another thing is gender equality balance or issues. Like our institution has the gender Center for Gender Studies,
Okay.
and they have that insurance for over 20 something years. But I'm not too sure whether such in line with maybe EU or other agencies. How do we go about it? Do we have to act and find out whether the EU will accept that or not?
First of all, this is a kind of institute. This is not relevant to your research. They're doing their job, and they don't mix up with your job. This is the issue.
Yeah.
And then,
Okay.
The second thing is that for the project, you need to ensure the gender equality, not for the other institutions. So for the project. So what it means?
Okay.
It means that, for example, you have advisory board in the project. Try
Yeah.
to appoint persons in advisory board to be 50-50.
Okay.
You know,
Oh,
this is the thing. When you are dealing with the research groups, when you're appointing the persons participating in the project, try to have
50-50.
equal number. Yes, equal number.
Okay.
It's not necessary 50-50 because some things cannot happen because you don't have researchers in the field or blah, blah, blah. But try to go as close as possible to the 50.
Oh yeah. Okay.
To see that you have the intention to support gender equality, not only by verbally, but also practically.
Practically, all right. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. And
Welcome.
we'll keep going through your presentation and see how we will now grasp it. And because there's so much information. Thank you so much. I
Yes,
appreciate
thanks
it.
a lot. I will use also
Yeah.
opportunity to ask universities to collaborate with our universities. We are very open for collaboration in any aspect. So
Wow.
you can just send us an idea and let's try to collaborate in any aspect with Erasmus Plus, Horizon Europe, whatever. So sometimes we can do. Sometimes we small countries can do some big steps, not having always the.
I think that's what the strength is. The small country. We are collaborating with some in Romania, and maybe we'll come to your place too and see how if you're into vector and vector-borne diseases and multi-omics, technology, proteomics, and all things. So I think we will collaborate with you there. I think we'll receive a lot of guidance. Yeah.
Sure, please.
Thank you so much.
Feel free,
Yeah.
invited.
Oh wow. Oh, thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you once again, Dr. Dalibo. Thank you for the open invitation to collaborate. I think this is what our research team also needs. We need collaborators. We need European collaborators. So please reach out to us if you need to or he already shared his contact. And I hope we've had a wonderful time today. Dr. Daliboy is our last speaker, and we will just have to close for the day. So I will hand over to Professor Ajayi that will give his closing remark and call this meeting to a close. Professor Ajayi.
Thank you very much. I know it's been a very, very wonderful time. I can see from. Hello, I hope you can hear me.
Yeah.
Yes, Prof.
Okay.
Yes.
So I said, I know it's been a very wonderful time from the kind of question I met while they are talking to Dr. Dalibo. I also did some of Dr. Malil and Dr. Hagbo. I want to sincerely thank our colleagues for staying informed. This makes it even interesting that this is all about let's ask questions so that we can refine ourselves, we can improve ourselves, so that when we have the opportunity, we will not be acting like novice. We would have had some background information. What we never planned for as a country is this conscious step we are taking now. It's a long process. We are now training ourselves, asking the right question. This little thing that can fail the whole thing. But now we're having opportunity. We can ask about it. We can see what do we do differently. So I want to thank you for taking time to be here. And I want to thank especially our resource person. We know this is a sacrifice. You are helping a third nation to grow in this process. We are very, very grateful. And we take the open invitation. We will contact from Cognitive Advisory. We'll make contact with you. If there are universities that are keen on looking for collaborators, we will reach out to you. Now you have become an ambassador of Nigeria in your university. So thank you very much. And I want to round up by thanking Cognitive Advisory for organizing this. Please, let's keep this up. It's a small drop, but they said it's all those small drop that makes an ocean on the long run. Let's not be discouraged. African EU call will soon be coming out there. Even the agenda is now being prepared. The more we are able to actively participate, the more our competitiveness becomes. Cognitive Advisory, we are very grateful, and we look forward to a more fruitful working time with us. And to our colleagues, please, if there are information again, the video of this will be available on our website. Please, there are information regularly shared on the Horizon Europe Nigerian website, which is managed by Cognitive Advisory, that you can leverage on. And feel free to contact us. If there's any question, just contact us, and we'll always be willing to support you. So once again, thank you very much, and have a very good afternoon.
Thank you so much, Prof. And I appreciate you. Thank you so much. And your team, you're doing a great job. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Everyone.
Have a good afternoon. Bye-bye.
Bye, Precious. Bye-bye. Yeah.
So one at this, when I claim that